How's it going, everyone? This is Dan for BladeReviews.com. Thank you for joining me and welcome to my review of the Cold Steel SRK, which stands for Survival Rescue Knife. This is one of Cold Steel's bread and butter offerings. Their medium-sized fixed blade utility knife that has been in their catalog for over a decade now. Ideally suited for camping and hiking. Also a good choice for, say, survival situations, if you will. Something to have in your bug out bag, your car, your truck, by your nightstand at night. And it's also a knife that is marketed towards law enforcement and military. So I've really enjoyed owning mine. It is we're looking at here is the Japanese-made AUS 8A version of the knife. It's the most popular version at the time of this video, commonly available for around 75 bucks. And we're gonna talk about it. So to start things off, I want to rattle off some quick specifications. The knife has an overall length of 10 3/4 inches. It's got a 6-inch long blade and a weight of 8.2 ounces. I do have a couple size comparisons to help build a little more context for you. First up, we've got a Feldknieven A1, which shares many similarities, not just in length, but also in just overall design language. They're quite similar designs. And I've also got an SE3, which is a much smaller, much different knife, but hopefully it gives you some appreciation for what to expect when you're contemplating the purchase of a Cold Steel SRK. So let's get those off the table and take a closer look at our blade here. And we have a very simple utilitarian clip point blade shape here. It's been given a partial flat grind. You have a nice lean swedge along the top that forms a very acute, very pointy tip. And the tip is actually pretty stout too. I did some tip testing on this knife. I bored some holes in a 2x4 with it, and it held up surprisingly well. So nice usable tip with a nice sharp point on there. I really like that a lot. Great for a lot of different tasks. And you've also got a nice thick piece of steel here. It is 3/16 of an inch thick, so that's right around 4.7 millimeters. It's not as thick as, say, the Feldknieven A1 that I've got, but it is reasonably stout and not a thin blade by any stretch of the imagination. So the knife has been coated in this black Teflon coating, and it's held up reasonably well under my use. You'll note that there is some wear here from chopping and batoning. You're going to get some wear marks here. There's a little bit of wear on the tip as well and on the reverse side of the knife. So it's not the most amazing coating. It's not a powder coat or anything like that, but this is a stainless steel, so you don't have to be quite as worried about if the coating flakes off or something like that. If it comes off, worrying about the knife rusting out. So it's a nice stainless steel. Let's talk a little bit about my experiences in use testing this knife out. The very first thing that I did was sharpen this knife. Actually, I sharpened it up on some diamond stones. I've had this knife forever, and I have used it off and on, so I can't remember what the factory edge was like exactly, but it did need a good sharpening by the time I was ready to start filming and cutting some stuff in my backyard. So first I did that, and then I started working on some felled tree branches that I had, stripping them down, some very light chopping to kind of take off the little branches and get down to some stuff that I could work with. I then began to do a little bit of carving, was whittling, carving in both traditional grips and also in using the technique where you put the back of the knife up against your knee and use the knife that way with some draw cuts. Performed really well in both capacities. Nice, capable slicer and whittler, especially once you get that AUS 8 steel nice and sharp, and it does take a very keen edge. I then moved on to some kind of batoning is what I did next, if I recall correctly. So I had those branches, I had a saw, I sawed them up into 1.5 foot long sections. They're approximately 3 inches in diameter, and I began to baton with the SRK. And on those little branches it batoned beautifully, no problems at all. I didn't have any really big pieces of seasoned hardwood to try to baton with, but if you're just going to be doing some light to medium batoning, under my use, I think it'll hold up just fine. I then moved on and did some chopping. This is not a chopper by any stretch of the imagination, but it's the kind of knife where it can do a little bit of everything. Not, amazingly well, but it can definitely do some chopping. And I chopped through a 2x4. I chopped through some of those tree limbs, and it took a little bit of time. It wasn't the the easiest thing to do in the world, but this knife is certainly capable of chopping. It certainly got through that stuff. So this is a tool that is pretty well rounded. You know, you can get some detail work done with it. It's got good balance and control for just general carving and whittling. It's got a nice capable tip that will hold up well, at least up against wood. And you can also get into some harder use stuff like batoning and chopping if you need to do that too. So nice, well-balanced knife. As for the AUS-8 steel, I'm not going to lie, guys. The steel has really grown on me over the years. I've come to appreciate AUS-8 for what it is, a nice high-value steel that takes a nice edge, is tough, is stainless, well, relatively stainless, and it is easy to work with. So for me, I mean, it held an edge quite well. I did do some cardboard cutting after all the wood processing, and you know, it lost its luster after a while. It's not the best steel in the world when it comes to overall edge retention. But when you're working with wood, it tends to do quite well in my experience, and I also like how easy it is to sharpen and maintain. So I don't have any issues with the AUS-8 steel. Let's talk a little bit about the handle here. The handle is Kraton rubber, and it is a very highly textured handle, simple, fills the hand well. So just no frills handle, really complements the overall knife, and it's been well done. So generous handle in terms of length, but also in terms of thickness. So it does fill the hand. It's comfortable. Didn't have any issues with hot spots forming or anything like that. You do have a lanyard hole here. The knife is pretty much a full tang knife. It's not like the Falcon Even A1 where you get the striker pommel, but it's a very solid handle configuration. Having done all the chopping and batoning that I've done, I did notice it's a little loose in there. I don't know if you can hear that. It is a little bit loose. So over time, this handle will eventually fall apart. But I think it's for the price you're paying. I think you're gonna be able to get $75 worth of work out of it. I think it's gonna hold up pretty well, especially if you're careful with it. But that is something I did notice. So it's kind of got a little bit of play in there, but it is a full tang knife, so I wouldn't worry about it snapping in half or anything like that. Just my observations. Also, from an ergonomic perspective, it's worth noting that you do have this large ricasso here, so you can choke up on the knife a little bit more than, say, something like a Falcon Even A1, since I just have that handy. So if you're trying to get a little bit more detail work done, you do have that option, worth noting. So at any rate, let's talk a little bit about the sheath that ships with the Cold Steel SRK, and it's arguably my favorite aspect about this knife, especially at this price point, because you get a really good full-featured sheath. It's a plastic sheath. Cold Steel calls this Secure X, but it is a high-density plastic. What I like about this is the fact that you have so many options, and it's such a versatile sheath. From a mounting perspective, you of course have a belt loop here, and the nice thing about this belt loop is it's a quick release with a snap and Velcro, so you can easily take this on and off your belt without having to take your belt off, which I am personally a big fan of. It's also fully ambidextrous and fully removable, so you can swap this to left or right side, or you can take this belt loop off if you're not looking to carry this on your belt. You do have the option of weaving webbing or some sort of cordage through these sheaths for horizontal or vertical carry. And as far as actual retention goes, it's excellent. Nice firm snap. It's in there securely. There's a little bit of rattle, which I found is common on pretty much all production fixed blade knives, well, a lot of them at least, so not a big deal there. You do have this secondary snap as well, which works quite well. So it's a nice secure package here, really well featured and quite robust, and it's also nice and durable. I mean, the sheath material is thick, it's generous, it's got good tolerances. You do get a little drain hole in the bottom, so water's not going to collect in it. It's just a well thought out, well executed sheath, especially at the price point. So I'm a big fan of that. Anyhow, that kind of takes us through the knife and the sheath and leads me to my final thoughts on the Cold Steel SRK. I think this is a very nice knife for the money. When you're looking at something for $75, you get a well-rounded fixed blade knife. You can do a lot of stuff with it. Primarily it's for medium duty, I would say, carving and whittling and things like that, but the tip is very capable. You can do some chopping and batoning with it, and it could make a nice well-rounded survival or utility knife. The sheath is excellent. It's again, one of my favorite parts about the knife is the fact that it comes with such a good sheath, all at one price point that most people can live with. So that's something I really like. Is it quite on par with something like this Falcon A1, which is like a $200 knife and sheath? No, I mean, definitely the A1 is the superior tool here. But if you're looking to get something and you're trying to keep it under $100, I can say that the SRK is well worth considering. So that's my take on it, at least. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, this is Dan for BladeReviews.com. Please let me know if you have any comments or questions. Feel free to check out the full written review on my website if you want to check out a full written review. And thanks again for watching. Take care.